More than anyone else, Colonel William Light's vision has defined the shape of this city. Now, in what can only be described as a nice twist, a group of artists is taking their visions of the good Colonel to his streets. Colonel William Light is celebrated for his clear-eyed vision of a city. But now the Watcher and his work are the subject of someone else's gaze.
Light didn't build every building in the city, he didn't sort of pave the roads himself, he just drew lines and made a plan. And from that plan we now have this city. So it reminds us that sort of 200 years down the track, all of our actions are still going to be sort of unfolding in their consequences.
Since January, Peter Drew has been working on a project that takes Colonel Light and the city he designed as its theme. It's called Unfinished, like this self-portrait, forever incomplete after Light's untimely death at the age of 53.
That's what attracted me to it, because you can sort of see that he had one shot at it and then he sort of tried again and then he didn't even finish it because he was unwell and he died later that year. But it's also the idea that the city's unfinished is something that's never completed.
It fits into an unfinished artistic journey that Peter Drew has played out on the streets Light designed since 2006. He's responsible for the images of an enigmatic Einstein on his bicycle that appeared around Adelaide.
It's one of the most brilliant minds in history and the simplest form of transport there is, and it just speaks volumes.
Peter Drew draws on a variety of techniques and subjects. He paints, he photographs, he prints. The streets are his preferred gallery, or perhaps canvas.
To take art outside of the formal confines of a gallery is a really interesting and giving gesture.
The Unfinished project sits alongside the South Australia Illustrated exhibition, looking at how early artists saw this land of promise. 275 years after colonisation, Peter Drew and 12 other artists have created their image of the man whose imagination, more than anyone else's, defines this place. There's even a piece of work from London by Adelaide artist James Cochrane. London was the city Light wanted to return to, but never did.
So now there's a link between those two cities, and in a nice kind of way, Light has gone back to London where he always wanted to.
Once the works are hung, this exhibition is far from finished. One by one, the original pictures will be removed to hang in Adelaide's streets, leaving just their prints on the gallery wall. The originals will be out there for the taking, a metaphor, Peter Drew says, for colonial times.
I've no doubt people will take them, because if you don't, then someone else will.
But with that comes the ethical dilemma. The artists' names will be on the back of the works. People can pay if they think they should.
I don't see it as a moral statement. I don't think art should make too many moral statements, really. I think it's more a question, and that question will be answered by the people of Adelaide when they interact with the work. Yeah, I'm not into sort of telling people about human nature. It's more, I want to find out about it as much as anyone else does.
I think that goodness does live in the world, and this is an act of generosity and an act of goodwill, and generally that comes back to you.
Adelaide is a reflection of its designer, and as he's reflected on the great man, Peter Drew's found yet another twist to his project. People keep telling him how much he resembles Colonel Light.
A coincidence, I hope, perhaps not, but nothing conscious, yeah.
Well, you don't want to share his fate. Death at an early age, unappreciated.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate if I'd just died of TB suddenly, but, you know, anything could happen, I guess, yeah.